This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association. Your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley Smith.
Well, good day and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Today is Thursday, June 1st, 2023. We're so glad you could join us for today's show. In today's episode, I talk with Iowa State Climatologist Dr. Justin Glisan about the recent weather and climate patterns that we've been seeing. Obviously, May was a lot drier, especially in that second half than we were expecting. But Mother Nature's kind of trying to make up for it a little bit right now with those rains we've been getting. So lots of interesting conversation there. We also have a check of that ag weather outlook. And of course, next, let's take a look at the markets.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
At the end of another trading day in the ag marketplace, we're joined by Kaden Sweeney of agmarket.net for a bit of analysis today. First off, Kaden, how are the grains looking?
Yeah, grains continuing their nice rebound from yesterday. Really on the grain side, beans leading the way today. We're going to end up pretty close to the high, up 30 cents or so. Corn was up strong early, kind of fading. July actually closing back red, so don't love to see that. December got up to a pretty strong resistance, 537, and it's hung in decently well. But really, from the grain side, beans are the leader today.
Right, and we've talked about this before on the program, but we're already into that weather market phase, but this is pretty early to be getting into that, right?
It is usually, yeah, and really, if you start talking to agronomists, this is pretty early in time of year for weather to really have a huge impact on yield. But at the same time, the market's going to trade, what it wants to trade, and when you see extended periods of no rain through the I states, it's going to get the market's attention. So, we've been trading weather really for a better part of 2 weeks now. I think we still got at least a week left, maybe longer. So yeah, it's one of those days you just kind of live and die by the 12-hour forecast that come out.
Right. We've seen as well, of course, being in the weather market, this isn't as big of a deal. But down in South America, we've got Brazil's crop getting ever bigger. We've got their major private ports reporting that they're going to be moving more grain than ever. But at this point, most of that, that fact that Brazil is going to have such a huge crop has been factored into the markets already.
A lot of it, yeah. Especially, that's more old crop, which is why I think you've seen old crop just get really hurt lately. It's crazy. Brazil announced they're importing, or the U.S. is importing some beans from Brazil yesterday. Just kind of goes to show how cheap Brazil is on the world market as compared to us. But yeah, we beans had a really nice pop here, like back in January, February when Argentina was dry, and everybody kept saying, "Hey, hang on, Brazil's got a monster crop here," and it took the market a little while to realize that, and it's finally come to fruition now.
Right, and back to the weather, here in Iowa, we mentioned this before we started recording here, but we've got patchy rains. If you're lucky enough to be underneath a cloud, you'll get a good amount of rain. You mentioned in Illinois, a bit drier, having that 2-week period still and possibly longer of dryness. When's the point where we're going to be seeing the markets go, hey, we really need to see some rain right now?
Yeah, like you said, Illinois is getting a little bit right now up north of me, north of Champaign, about an hour south of Champaign. So we've been dry for 2 weeks. We're dry for at least another here probably. But to answer your question, I think if we're pretty dry, throughout the weekend, I think Sunday night could get pretty explosive. Now historically too, especially around Memorial Day when you're trading weather markets, that Sunday night open, if you're up, 20 cents on corn, that's usually it usually gets sold off by the next day. It's usually winds up being a pretty good sale come harvest. But yeah, I think if we keep this in for another week and forecasts aren't bringing much moisture back in, then I think definitely this thing can get pretty interesting.
And then, of course, on the other side of the markets in the livestock complex, how are they doing today?
Yeah, really, livestock's the story today. Cattle just up huge. June live cattle making contract highs, up like almost $6 on the day. August fat cattle also up like $5 on the day, which is just crazy. Feeders up $3 as well, roughly. So, yeah, huge day in the cattle markets for sure. Hogs a little bit either side, depending on if you're looking at front month June, which is going off the board soon, but front month hogs still up about $1.50. We go back to July, they're down. But yeah, just a huge cattle story today, really the biggest story in all the commodities today.
And then I finally seeing, we've talked so long about when's that grilling season demand going to pick up? When's that finally going to arrive? Are we finally seeing that in the marketplace?
I think you are, and really, cash market's been really strong. Hearing pretty good bids all over the place, and I think futures is just kind of chasing cash. And really, I think it's every bit of demand. It's supply as well. We're saw that second quarter U.S. beef supply is down 6% from last year. That's pretty major, and I think you're just continuing to see good strength in the cow complex all the way around.
All right, Kaden, lots of great information today. For those of our listeners who would like to get in touch and learn more from the folks at agmarket.net, how can they do that?
Yep, just go to our website, agmarket.net, and you can reach any of our team from there, as well as try out a 1 month trial of our app, of our intel, kind of get a feel for what we do.
Great talking with you today, as always, Kaden, and we'll speak with you again soon.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Enjoy that rain.
That again was Kaden Sweeney of agmarket.net. We'll go ahead and take a look at how those numbers close. That's courtesy of the folks at Bar Chart. July corn is down 1.5 at 592.5. December new crop up 8 1/4 at 530 even. July soybeans up 29 3/4 at 1329.5. November new crop up 22.5 at 1169 even. July soybean meal up $8 at 401.40. July soybean oil up 166 at 47.86. Chicago wheat up 16.5 at 610 3/4. Minneapolis spring wheat up 9 even at 789 even. Kansas City hard red wheat up 12 even at 802.5. July oats went unchanged at 339 even. On the Merc, June live cattle up 577 at 174.90. August feeders up 247 at 241.65. June lean hogs up 97 at 83.55. Pork cutout up 97 at 86.52. And June class 3 milk up 24 cents at 15.65. And that's been a check of the markets here on Ag Matters PM. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, I talk with Iowa State Climatologist Dr. Justin Glisan. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Well, the beginning of May looked really promising for precipitation as we had some really nice rains early on, but then the second half of the month was very, very dry, with some parts of the state, if you get to the western part into Nebraska even, recording record lows for precipitation far and away below what their previous record was. So kind of an interesting shift all of a sudden to that dry weather pattern. Now, it seems like Mother Nature's trying to make up for that a little bit, and we could see some relief from El Nino later on this summer as well. I talked with Iowa State Climatologist Dr. Justin Glisan about what we've been seeing recently, and then how we could get those timely rains to really help out with that crop that we just planted. Well, we are here with Iowa State Climatologist Dr. Justin Glisan to take a check on the weather and climate patterns here in Iowa. Now, first off, Justin, how's that drought monitor been looking recently for the state of Iowa?
Good to be with you, Riley. So we've saw good improvement across the state in early May with wetter conditions, a more active storm track. Since then, the last few weeks have been unseasonably dry across the state and across much of the Corn Belt in general. So we've seen an expansion of D0, which is that abnormally dry category, over the last week, which now covers 53% of the state. We look at D1 and D2 categories in pockets of southeastern Iowa, also northeastern Iowa, and then a pocket of D2 that's expanded over the border from Nebraska into Pottawatomie and Harrison counties. So overall, an expansion of drought and intensification of drought, given the warmer and drier, lower dew point temperatures that we've seen.
Well, and it's certainly been an interesting month when it comes to precipitation, because it's supposed to be one of the wettest months of the year. But then you look especially at, western parts of the state, and I saw into Nebraska as well. They're like half an inch below even their previous record lows for the month. So How's that been looking for the state so far?
Yeah, in fact, Omaha had its driest May on record, so extremely dry conditions in western Iowa. We had a few National Weather Service co-op stations that have had their driest May, but not as pervasive as it could have been given how dry things got at the second half of May. Things were looking great the first half of May in terms of, as you mentioned, being one of the 2 wettest months climatologically. So we were about 2 inches below average on the statewide average. But of course, you have pockets of drier conditions in western Iowa and even southeastern and southwestern Iowa. June is the wettest month for much of the northern 2/3 of the state. So we'll just have to see how things shake out. But yes, overall, we've seen stream flows decrease. We've seen soil moisture also decrease. We've had timely rainfalls to hold the early crop on. So things are looking pretty good out in the fields, but we definitely, looking at those outlooks, do see the possibility of rapid onset drought across much of the eastern part of the state and then expanding into the eastern Corn Belt.
So if we were to see, kind of that declaration of rapid onset drought, what would we, kind of expect from that just immediately to occur then?
You would see D1 expansion. So again, abnormally dry conditions, D0 is not drought. It's a reflection of 30 to 60-day dryness. But you have to remember we're in the 3rd year, 3.5 years of drought since 2020. So we have longer term precipitation deficits out there. And when you get into these warmer periods with lower relative humidities, the atmosphere develops a thirst. It'll extract any moisture that it can find. And in the absence of rainfall, that's where you can see these longer term deficits start to be unearthed again. And you start to see those exacerbated. And that's where you can see that flashy drought start to occur.
Well, at the very least, it feels like over the past couple days that Mother Nature's been trying to make up for that a little bit, because we've had a pretty good amount of rain. Just how much rain are we getting right now, and what's been pushing that through the state?
Yeah, great point. It depends on if you're sitting underneath a thunderstorm. We've had what we call popcorn thunderstorms, those heat of the day driven thunderstorms that pop up across the state. We've had good rainfall in west central Iowa, overnight in central Iowa, and moving into eastern Iowa. So good amounts. I've had an inch over 2 days in Des Moines, which was welcomed relief given that we've gone 14 days without precipitation. So we are seeing good totals where rain is falling, but still pockets of the state that have not received rainfall. Now we are in a weather pattern in which spotty thunderstorms are going to form every afternoon. It just depends on if you're one of the lucky farmers that is underneath one of those thunderstorms. But we should expect this behavior as we move through the next several days.
Well, we've had a lot of farmers asking as well about that El Nino climate pattern, and a lot of them are like, well, when's the rain going to come from that? So let's just talk again about what that means with the El Nino climate pattern, and then how that'll impact the Midwest once it gets around to being here.
Yeah, El Nino is the question. Still high probabilities of El Nino formation in early summer, we'll say June timeframe in July. The oceanic sea surface temperature anomalies are there in the Eastern Pacific. What we need now is the atmosphere to respond by producing thunderstorms over those warmer waters. And that's where El Nino will really start to take hold officially. If we look at analog years of summertime conditions when El Nino forms, and there's a possibility of this being a pretty strong El Nino, we typically see cooler temperatures along with wetter patterns, not as dry as La Nina as we've been over the last 3 years. So definitely you look at those June outlooks that were issued by the Climate Prediction Center yesterday, still showing a semblance of a dry signal across the Corn Belt and getting into Iowa. I think part of that has to do with the drier last part of May and those soil moisture profiles feeding in to the potential for warmer temperatures as we do get into June. Those short-term outlooks are also showing a strong signal for warmer temperatures. But on the precipitation side, not a strong dry signal over the next few weeks. So we are, I think, shaking off that La Nina ENSO neutral flavor out of the forecasts. Once we do get into El Nino, I do think we'll see a large-scale pattern shift, and it will be beneficial as we move through the rest of the growing season, especially the teeth of the growing season.
Right, and this, being at this point in the growing season, most of the crop, if not all, is in the ground at this point. So we are at that phase where we just need that rain to come down.
Yes, we need the rain to hold the crop on. June and July are pivotal months in terms of pollination and physiological growth of corn and beans. So those timely rainfalls held us on into 2021 and 2022 with record yields in 2021 and near records in 2022 across much of the state. So again, that El Nino signature, if it comes to fruition, and I still believe it will be beneficial through the growing season. And I think we'll get those rainfalls that we need to hold the crop on and to push them hard.
All right, and is there anything else climatologically going on in the state of Iowa that our listeners and viewers should know about today?
No, we're just monitoring drought concerns. Given that we're going into the warmer part of the year, June and July, we can get exacerbated drought conditions, especially the rapid onset drought that we discussed earlier. So if our farmers and stakeholders are seeing anything on their farms or in their production, send those observations to us. It helps us produce a better recommendation to the U.S. Drought Monitor author each week. And you can do that by reaching out to my office. My direct line is 515-281-8981. My email is justin.glisan@iowaagriculture.gov. And then, of course, go on Google, search for Iowa Climatology Bureau, and it'll give you all my contact information.
All right, Justin, thanks for taking the time to visit with us today, and we'll speak with you again soon.
Thanks, Riley.
That again was Iowa State Climatologist Dr. Justin Glisan. And speaking of the weather, let's go ahead and take a look at that ag weather outlook. We have a chance for isolated thunderstorms pretty much every day. And as Dr. Glisan said, you have to be kind of lucky to be underneath those thunderstorms because they're forming and moving very slowly, kind of dumping all of their precipitation just on one spot. So not a very consistent rain we're seeing going through the state. But if you are lucky enough to be in those areas, there is a good amount coming down to really relieve those soil water levels. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the National Weather Service has in store for the next 24 hours. As you can see from the National Weather Service, those thunderstorms are going to occur pretty much every afternoon. Today we have chances for thunderstorms and showers with highs ranging from the mid-80s to about 90. Tonight, chances for thunderstorms continue, then partly to mostly cloudy after that. Lows ranging from the low to mid-60s. Tomorrow we have thunderstorms likely once again across the state, highs ranging from the upper 80s to low 90s. And taking a look at the affiliate weather map, once again, thunderstorms across the state, so we'll just take a look at those temps. Cherokee, high around 87, Shenandoah, 87, Des Moines, 90, Waterloo, 90, Albia, 90, and Clinton, a high of around 92. For more detailed forecasts in your part of the state, make sure to check in with your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate. That's been a check of the Ag Weather Outlook, and that also brings us to the end of this episode of Ag Matters PM. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. You can also follow us on social media at Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And you can find all of our video content as well as previous episodes of AMPM on our YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell to see when those videos go live. Don't forget as well our free Twice Daily Market podcasts on Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Riley Smith. On behalf of Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.